or the governor's executive can basically blue line what he considers to be unnecessary or unnecessary spending. I mean, I think those are some of the tools we are going to need. Reforming Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two government-sponsored enterprises. You know, we talk about too big to fail. I already know what that is. It's called Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Too big to fail. And they failed. And they're in a conservatorship right now. And I think we can start making some more serious reforms there. By the way, they're not part of any of these financial regulatory reform bills. They're not even in. And that's where the great exposure to the taxpayer is. It's on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, government-sponsored enterprises. People, these are the organizations that own or guarantee over half the mortgage debt of the country.
96%.
It's a lot of money. It's very, very big money. And I think that's, and truthfully, many of the actions of Fannie and Freddie contributed to this housing bubble. Now we're on the hook. We, the taxpayer, are on the hook, but there's some things we can do. They're in a conservatorship right now, and I think we're going to have to establish minimum capital standards and bring about greater transparency there. We could, shrink their portfolios, and we can save some money as a result of this. But there's been a big cost to the government for Fannie and Freddie. So there's some things that I think we can do in short order to help improve this situation. And there's some things, frankly, again, knowing the unsustainability of the federal budget deficit right now, Congress enacted a new entitlement on the healthcare side of $2.5 trillion over 10 years when fully implemented. This is a big number. I mean, so instead of dealing with the problem that you've identified, and I think that most people are recognizing, Congress kind of went the other direction and said, let's march closer to the cliff. I think that is a very real concern. Part of my frustration right now in Congress, I recognize this. So, sir, you have a question?
Don't you think in Washington the big problem now is that the Democratic Party has control of the White House and Congress, and they could basically do anything, and very little will be done unless there are more Republicans that will balance this out with the House, with the Senate, complete control, and that's what has happened. Even with the votes, all the Republicans sticking together and voting together was not enough to stop them in any way.
Well, look, people, we get into these discussions about bipartisanship, and I think all of us would like to see greater levels of collaboration and bipartisanship, but we have to understand too that there are some philosophical differences that are underlying these political debates. And as such, clearly you'll have more bipartisanship if you have divided government. And some people, that might not sound like it, may not make a whole lot of sense, but let me explain. If you have a Republican Congress and a Democratic president, that will force collaboration. Because in order to pass anything, you will need members of both parties to pass something out of the House and the Senate. It may not be a pretty compromise. It may be hard fought, but you, at the end of the day, will have a bipartisan agreement. It will have to happen in order to get 218 votes in the House and 51 or 60 in the Senate. You will have to have some level of bipartisanship. And I'll tell you my own frustration on this issue of bipartisanship. You mentioned that they don't always need your vote. It's true. On the issue of the so-called stimulus, I was called to the White House before the first vote. It was only a few weeks after President Obama was sworn in, inaugurated. And I went to the White House, and myself and 12 other House Republican members were invited. It was very kind. They basically just want to talk to you about the stimulus. We're meeting with the Chief of Staff, Ron Emanuel. He'd served in the House with us, wanted to chat, wanted to take our temperature, so to speak, on the stimulus bill. And we were voting on the bill the next day. And we said, Ron, the bill's going to be voted on tomorrow. The bill is written. It's over 1,000 pages long. We're not permitted to offer any amendments. There's some things in here that I don't particularly like. Looks like you're spending on a lot of things that we ordinarily spend money on, except this time on steroids. And so there are policy issues here. There are procedural issues. And if you're asking me to consider voting for this, I'm not going to vote for it. I don't know, I can't speak